Hello class, welcome to today's session. What we are going to discuss about this time around is the time value of money. Maybe you remember that time when Burger McDo or Jollibee Young Burger would just cost more or less 50 pesos. Or maybe you recall back when we were younger that with just 100 pesos, we can already buy an entire meal and commute to and from school. However, today, you can no longer buy a Burger McDo or Jollibee Young Burger with just 50 pesos because these items now cost around 80 to 100 pesos. While with a 100 peso allowance, it's barely enough to buy food to last us for a day, let alone cover transportation costs. These things are just among the practical examples in everyday life where we can see the concept of time value of money at work. Time value of money is the concept that the money you have now is worth more than the same amount you have in the future. In other words, a 1 peso is worth more yesterday than a 1 peso today, and a 1 peso today is worth more than a 1 peso tomorrow. This is because of the potential earning capacity of money arising from time. Hence, we can imagine time value of money to look something like this. The present value plus the element of time is equal to the future value, where the present value is the current starting amount or the amount you have now, and the future value is the ending amount at a certain point in time in the future. Having said that, a very important component of time value that we need to understand is interest. Interest is basically the money you owe when borrowing money or the money you are paid when lending money. This is usually expressed as a percentage rate, for example, 1%, 3%, 10%, and so on, and typically measured in annual terms such that 1% interest, for example, is for 1 year. In order to calculate simple interest, we can use the formula I equals P times R times T, where I is equals to interest, P is equals to principal, R is equals to interest rate, which like I mentioned is usually the annual interest rate, and T is equals to term, which is usually expressed in years. To understand this more, let's illustrate it using this problem. Alia invested 100,000 pesos in a savings bank account that earns a simple interest of 5% to save money for a workout equipment she dreams of buying. She plans on keeping the investment in the bank for 3 years. Applying the formula I equals P times R times T, the principal P is equals to 100,000 pesos, R is equals to 5%, and T is equals to 3. Getting the products of these figures, Dahlia will earn an interest of 15,000 pesos. Adding this interest of 15,000 pesos to the original investment of 100,000 pesos, which is the money she has today, Dahlia's investment in her savings bank account will amount to 115,000 pesos after 3 years. This 115,000 pesos is the future value. The formula I equals P times R times T is actually called the mother formula because from this, we can derive other formulas which can then be used to compute for various time value problems. As I have mentioned earlier, this formula is for computing simple interest. In real life, however, most often than not, the interest is compounding. When interest is compounding, the interest is not only earned based on the principal amount but also on the accumulated interest. Hence, the principal upon which interest is computed increases each period. In order to understand, let us take our problem earlier again, but this time, Dahlia invested 100,000 pesos in a savings bank account that earns a compounding interest of 5% to save money for a workout equipment she dreams of buying. How much will the account balance be after 3 years? Let us first construct a timeline by taking the number of periods which is equal to 3 years. Let's have year 0, year 1, year 2, and year 3. Basically, what this means is from year 0, our starting point, to year 1, the end point is equivalent to 1 year. Year 1, the starting point, to year 2, the end point is equivalent to 1 year again, and the same thing from year 2 to year 3. From here to here to here is equivalent to 3 years. Now that we have set the timeline, we start in year 1 with the initial principal of 100,000 pesos. Multiplying this to the interest rate of 5%, we will get 5,000. Getting the sum of these two, we will get 105,000, which will be our new principal. This new principal will be the basis of computing the interest for year 2. So again, multiplying 5% to 105,000, we will get an interest of 5,250. And adding that to 105,000, we will get a new principal of 110,250. Repeating the process, 110,250 times 5% is equal to 5,512.5. And then getting their total, we will arrive at 115,762.5, and this is our future value. Therefore, to answer our question, Dahlia's account will have a balance of 115,762.5 after 3 years. As you can observe from this timeline, we are moving to the right when we are finding the future value. This is the process called compounding, in which we bring the money to some point in the future by multiplying. If we put this into a formula, it will look something like this. FB equals P multiplied by the sum of 1 plus R raised to N, where FB is equals to the future value, P is equals to the principal, R is equals to the interest rate, which is usually the annual interest rate, and N is equals to the number of periods that is usually measured in years. Let's try this formula out by plugging in the numbers based on the same problem to see if we will get the same answer. The principal of 100,000 pesos multiplied by the sum of 1 and 5% interest rate raised to the number of periods, that is 3 years. The sum of 1 and 5% is 1.05, and raising that to 3, we will get 1.1576. Finally, multiplying this to the principal of 100,000 pesos, the future value is equals to 115,762.5. As you can see, we got the same amount of future value as the one we have previously computed using a timeline. So far, what we have done is finding the value of a sum of money today at some point in the future. How about if we want to know how much is the sum of a future value today? Using the mother of all formulas, we will get what will look like this. PV equals P divided by the sum of 1 plus R raised to N, where PV is equals to the present value, P is equals to the principal, R is equals to the interest rate, and N is equals to the number of periods. Present value is basically the equivalent value today of a particular value in the future. To illustrate this, let's assume that at the end of 3 years, Dahlia has a total of 120,000 pesos in her savings account that earns a compounding interest of 5%. How much did she initially invest? Plugging in the numbers into our formula, we will have to divide the principal of 120,000 by the sum of 1 and 5% raised to the number of periods, which is 3. We will get a present value of 103,660.5118. Using the timeline to check if what we got is correct, let us take once again the principal of 120,000 pesos and divide it by the sum of 1 and 5%. We will get 114,285.7143. Taking this figure and dividing it by the sum of 1 and 5%, again, we will get 108,843.5374. Repeating the process one last time, we will get 103,660.5118, which is equal to what we have computed using the present value formula. As you can observe, this time, we are moving to the left when we are looking for the present value. This is called discounting, which in contrast to compounding is bringing money to a point in time closer to the present by dividing. Taking our Dahlia problem once again, what if she invests money not just once? What if she invests the same amount every year for 3 years, like in this problem? Dahlia invests 100,000 pesos every year for 3 years in a savings bank account that earns interest of 5% to save money for a workout equipment she dreams of buying. How much is her account balance at the end of the year? In this case, we are entering into the concepts of ordinary annuity and annuity due. In ordinary annuity, a series of equal payments is made at the end of consecutive periods over a fixed length of time. In other words, the payment occurs at the end of the period. On the other hand, in annuity due, a series of equal payments is made immediately at the beginning of consecutive periods over a fixed length of time. Hence, the payment occurs at the beginning of the period. Let's go back to our problem and use a timeline to illustrate ordinary annuity first. Like what I said, the payment occurs at the end of the period, which means that if year 0 is the starting point, then year 1 is the end point. And so, we shall plug in the payments in year 1, year 2, and year 3, which are the ends of each year. Compounding these amounts, we multiply 100,000 by the sum of 1 and 5%. We then add this to the second payment made by Dahlia, giving us 205,000. Again, we multiply this total by the sum of 1 and 5%, which will give us 215,250. Adding this to the third payment made by Dahlia, we will get 315,250, which is the balance of her account after 3 years under ordinary annuity. What about under annuity due? This time, the payment occurs at the beginning of the period, which means that if year 0 is the starting point and year 1 is the end point, the cash flows will occur in year 0, year 1, and year 2. Compounding these amounts like before, we multiply 100,000 by the sum of 1 and 5%. We then add this to the second payment made by Dahlia to get 205,000. Again, we multiply this total by the sum of 1 and 5%, which will give us 215,250. Adding this to the third payment made by Dahlia, we will get 315,250. Lastly, multiplying this by the sum of 1 and 5%, we will get 331,012.5. And this here is the balance of Dahlia's account after 3 years under annuity due. We can also do the reverse of this by discounting the cash flows to find the present value of Dahlia's payments. Using the timeline earlier again under ordinary annuity, we divide 100,000 by the sum of 1 and 5% to get 95,238.0952, and then add this to Dahlia's payment of 100,000 pesos to get a total of 195,238.0952. Doing this again, we divide the total by the sum of 1 and 5% and then add this to 100,000, giving us 285,941.0431. Finally, we divide this number by the sum of 1 and 5%, which will give us 272,324.8029. This right here is the present value of Dahlia's investment under ordinary annuity. On the other hand, under annuity due, where payments occur at the beginning of the year, doing the same process of discounting, we will arrive at the present value of 285,941.0431. At this point, our examples have involved equal cash flows with interest rates that are the same for each period. So what if the cash flows and interest rates are not the same for each period? In this case, we have to rely on the mother formula alone. Let's illustrate this with this example. Dahlia makes payments at the end of the period for 3 years in the following schedule: 100,000 in year 1, 150,000 in year 2, and 200,000 in year 3. The interest rates are 3% for the first year, 4% for the second year, and 5% for the third year. What is the future value and present value of her investments? To compute for the future value first, let's take the payment of 100,000 pesos which occurred at the end of the first year and multiply it by the sum of 1 and 4%, which is the interest rate for the second year. This will give us 104,000. Since this is computing for the future value, we are compounding, moving to the right. You might ask why we used 4% instead of 3%. Since the cash flow occurred at the end of the year, the applicable interest would be the interest rate in the succeeding year because the first year has already passed. That's why we use 4% instead of 3%. Next, we get the sum of 104,000 and the payment of 150,000 at the end of the second year, which will equal to 254,000. Taking this and multiplying it by the sum of 1 and 5%, which is the interest rate for the third year, we will get 266,700. Finally, summing this up with a payment of 200,000 at the end of the third year, we will get 466,700. This is the future value of Dahlia's investment. Now for the present value of Dahlia's investment, we will be discounting, meaning we will be moving to the left this time around. And so we take the payment of 200,000 at the end of the third year and divide it by the sum of 1 and 5%, the interest rate for the third year, which will give us 190,476.1905. Adding this to the payment of 150,000 at the end of the second year, we will get 340,476.1905. Once again, we take this figure and divide it by the sum of 1 and 4%, the interest rate for the second year, which will give us 327,380.9524. Summing this up with the payment of 100,000 at the end of the first year, we will get 427,380.9524. Finally, we take this total and divide it by the sum of 1 and 3%, the interest rate for the first year, which will result in a total of 414,932.9635. Now we have the present value of Dahlia's investments. How about if the problem becomes more complicated because this time the cash flows, the interest rate, and the compounding periods do not match, such that Dahlia makes payments of 100,000 at the end of every quarter for 1 year at an annual interest rate of 5% compounded monthly. In cases like this, we have to adjust the timeline and the interest rate to reflect the quarterly payments. So how do we do that? To find a new timeline, we have to multiply the term by the number of cash flow occurrence. The term is for 1 year in our problem, and in that 1 year, Dahlia makes 4 payments. Hence, 1 multiplied by 4 is equal to 4, our new timeline. As for the new interest rate, we cannot just simply divide the annual interest rate of 5% by the compounding period of 12, which is 12 because based on our problem, the interest is compounded monthly, and in 1 year, there are 12 months. No, we first have to determine the effective interest rate, which shall take into the consideration the compounding aspect of the interest. The formula of the effective interest rate is effective interest rate is equals to 1 plus r divided by m raised to m minus 1, where r is equals to the stated annual rate, m is equals to the compounding period, which is how many times the interest is compounded before the next cash flow occurs, and r divided by m, which is equals to the periodic interest. Plugging in the values, we subtract 1 from the sum of 1 plus the quotient of 5% divided by 12, which is the periodic interest, raised to 3, which is the compounding period. This will give us a percentage of 1.2552%. This is our effective annual interest rate. Now that we have made all the necessary conversions in order to make the cash flows, interest, and compounding periods match, we can proceed to computing the future value by using the compounding formula. Let's take the payment of 100,000 at the end of the first quarter and multiply it by the sum of 1 and the effective interest rate we computed of 1.2552%. This will give us 101,255.2156. Next, we get the sum of this and the payment of 100,000 at the end of the second quarter, which will equal to 201,255.2156. Taking this and multiplying it by the sum of 1 and 1.2552%, we will get 203,781.4024. Summing this up with a payment of 100,000 at the end of the third quarter, we will get 303,781.4024. Repeating the process for the last time, we will take this figure and multiply it by 1.2552%, which will give us 307,594.5138, which when we add to the last payment of 100,000 at the end of the fourth quarter, it will give us 407,594.5138. This is the future value of Dalia's investment. As for the present value of Dalia's investment, like before, we will be discounting. Let's take the payment of 100,000 at the end of the fourth quarter and divide it by the sum of 1 and 1.2552%, which will give us 98,760.3448. Adding this to the payment of 100,000 at the end of the third quarter, we will get 198,760.3448. Once again, we take this figure and divide it by the sum of 1 and 1.2552%, which will get us 196,296.4018. Summing this up with the payment of 100,000 at the end of the second quarter, we will get 296,296.4018. Taking this figure and dividing it by the sum of 1 and 1.2552% again, we will get 292,623.3480, which we then add to the payment of 100,000 at the end of the first quarter. From this, we will get 392,623.3480. Finally, we take this total and divide it by the sum of 1 and 1.2552%, which will result in a total of 387,756.1721. And there you go, the present value. To recap what we have discussed today, let's look over the important elements of time value of money again, which are, number 1, the number of time periods, which can be in months, years, or any other measurement of time, the annual interest rate or the discount rate depending on the calculation, the present value, which is what you currently have in your pocket, the payments, which if any exists is the periodic cash flows, and if none, the payments are equal to 0. And lastly, the future value, which is the amount you will receive in the future. Given this information, we can compute for any value at any point in time. And speaking of computations, the formulas we can use to find values are the following. The mother formula, which is I equals P times R times T, from which we can derive the compounding formula to find a future value, that is FV equals P multiplied by the sum of 1 plus R raised to N, and the discounting formula to find the present value, which is PV equals P divided by the sum of 1 plus R raised to N. With just these three formulas, we can answer any time value problem. May they be ordinary annuity, annuity due, different cash flows, different interest rates, or even for missing variables. Indeed, time value of money can be a tricky and complicated thing. Personally, I struggled with problems that involve varying interest rates each period because I get confused on which interest rate is applicable to which period. I also find problems that involve a mixture of both finding the future value and the present value tricky because I get confused as to which cash flows the growth rate should be applied to and which cash flows should be discounted. Last of all, I struggle sometimes in converting an interest rate into the effective annual interest rate in problems where the compounding aspect, the term, and frequency of payments differ from one another. In here, I find which correct number to input into the effective interest rate formula quite confounding, particularly when it's not the usual compounded monthly or quarterly. However, with the right understanding of the fundamentals and practice, we will all be able to grasp these ideas and effectively apply time value concepts onto our personal lives, especially for financial decision making. And with that said, this is where our discussion ends. I hope you learned a lot from today's class. Thank you for your time.